Thank you, and hi, everyone. It's really nice to see so many of you, and hi. Thank you all for being here today, and and especially also to those who might have joined us yesterday or been here to see the exhibition. So this platform conversation is the first public event connected, as Jade mentioned, and I thought it might be good to begin by saying a few words first about the framework behind the exhibition before we go to our lovely panel here. So I will start with a short introduction to the literally point of departure and then and the curatorial approach before we continue from here. So it will just be me for a little bit, and I also will steer. I'm trying to steer my slides at the same time. I'll try to multitask. So before moving further, maybe I'll do like a short. So I moved here. I moved here a little bit more than 3 years ago to Bergen. At that time I moved from Oslo, so it's not that far away, but still I thought I should get to know Bergen. And I came here just before the summer then with my family, and one of the first things I did was to spend the summer to walk up on all the 7 mountains surrounding Bergen. It felt like a thing you should do. And also I noticed that Holberg was very present. My generation learned about Holberg in school, as many of you knew, but mostly about the screenplays. And then when I moved to Bergen, I saw Holberg's Plass and the statue and Holberg's Institute, Holbergsprisen, Niels Klim-prisen, and I felt like, okay, I should maybe I'll embarrass myself. I need to go back to Holberg, and I'm sure all people in Bergen know a lot about Holberg. And Niels Klim, the street is here, for example. So I picked up the book, this one, that summer, and I read it because I thought everyone had. Turns out, not so many have. But, so don't feel like I'm looking at you now. But I'm still really happy that I thought you did, so that I read it. Because so this is, as many of you maybe know Holberg, you also know that he wrote screenplays, and this is the only novel that Holberg has written. So, since I expect that not many of you have read it, I'll start with a short synopsis. So the book that inspired me in English, then the Niels Klim's Journey to the Underground, was published by Ludvig Holberg in 1741. So we have to go back to like Opplysningstiden, the Enlightenment period. We're way back. It tells the story of a young man who falls through a hole in the earth beneath Bergen. And you can almost see the cave from here where he supposedly fell down. It's close to Rothaugen, Fløyen, Sandviken. So Mariminehålet in the Fløyen area, not far from where we are now. What is perhaps less known is that Niels Klim, the character in the book, was also based on a real person who lived here in Bergen, supposedly working as a church clerk at Mariakirken. In that sense, the story is fascinating because it has this mix of fictional and strangely local, rooted in this city that I moved to, while at the same time opening up this radical speculative world. So, needless to say, I just thought it was so inspiring. In this fall down, Klim enters this luminous subterranean world inhabited by sentient trees and a series of strange societies, each organized according to different moral, political, and social systems. Let me see if I sort of, they look a bit like that. To the left is one of the illustrations from the first edition, so that's how, I look at them a bit. So in this underground world, the trees govern, and they possess reason, ethics, and political authority, among others. Humans are no longer the natural center of the world, nor the obvious measure of intelligence or value. The novel is deeply satirical. Holberg uses fantasy, exaggeration, and humor to test the Enlightenment ideas about reason, progress, hierarchy. And each society Klim encounters initially appears rational and well-ordered, but then gradually reveals also contradictions and exclusions, etc. So there's 27 of these societies in the book. So there's many. You should read them. It's fun. But rather than presenting this perfect utopia, the underground becomes this sequence of unstable experiments and systems that must be questioned, revised, or abandoned. Read today, I found that the underground functions not only as a fictional setting, but as a way of thinking, a space where human authority is like displaced, where other forms of knowledge emerge, and where coexistence is organized through growth and branching and interdependence rather than domination. And and then it's this understanding of the underground that forms the starting point for the exhibition in my head. So Iter Subterraneum takes its title from Holberg's original Latin title for the novel, because it was first published in Latin. That was because it would probably been censored at that time if it had been written in another language. The exhibition does not illustrate the book, but it treats it as a generative framework, a way of thinking with the underground. So here the underground is not darkness, but it's infrastructure, ecology, archive, a space for roots, mycelial networks, decay, slow transformation, among other things. And then across the exhibition, you'll see bodies appear as porous rather than bounded, identity shifts, agency distributed across species, materials, and time. There is, just because I had this opportunity, I wanted to briefly inform 3 texts that has inspired the curatorial research. If you'll bear with me, I'll try to do it quick. The first one is in this book that you also found downstairs in our bookshop. It's a quite recent reading, and it's Holberg's Society of Thinking Trees is understood as an early experiment in ecological thoughts. So this is kind of where the plant tree intelligence comes into the picture. And let me see. And then the other ones are, I don't have them here, but it's one text which is from Peter Fitting's essay, Buried Treasure, Reconsidering Holberg's and Niels Klim's of the World Underground. And in this essay, he situates the book in traditional utopian science fiction literature and early science fiction, showing how Holberg transforms this whole concept of the hollow earth, because it's the subterranean, into a philosophical testing ground for social systems. So in science fiction and early science fiction, it was often that the utopia was upwards or outwards, but this is one of the first novels that goes downwards and underground. And also, if it helped me. It's, Gullivers Reise. So that's maybe one of the more famous ones. So that was a little bit earlier. So these two, when you start to read about them, are often compared from that period. And then the third one is Jørgen Magnus Seierstedts Nonkonformisten, Ludvig Holbergs skeive selvfremstilling. And in this paper, Holberg emerged as a non-conforming figure within the Enlightenment period. So these sort of 3 texts, Holberg's speculative fiction, Fitting's reading of the science fiction utopia, and Seierstedts non-conforming body, are like, in my head, 3 sort of legs that inspired how I invited in the artists in the exhibition. I'll briefly just mention also the artists who are not present today. I won't go into the works in detail, but I really encourage you to spend some time with them in the exhibition and to explore their practice further. So that was short about the... and then also I can say that we do a little bit of a Q&A, but we gather, if you have questions, we try to gather them up for the end instead of in between all the bits and pieces, and then we can take some. So just make a note of them if you have any questions on the different ones, and then we try to answer it in the end. So here I'll just do a little this I showed you, and then I also wanted to mention that there's also now we're going to talk to the artists that are like in gallery 1, 2, 3, and 4, the contemporary one. But as you might have noticed, And Holberg and Niels Klim, we also have a space in Gallery 5 where we have been so lucky to get 21 editions borrowed from the University Library here in Bergen, including the first edition from 1741 in Latin. You'll see them downstairs with these wonderful illustrations as well, but we also, in that space, there's also some other works, among other things, this animation by Karine Melby, Reisen til planeten Nazar, and also some other bits and pieces from these novels and other bits and pieces that sort of you can see have been inspired by the book. So please also, it's great, in my head it's great to start seeing the exhibition actually in Gallery 5, so you can see how it sort of began in my head, if that makes sense. Okay, so yes, see if I can find this next slide here. So before inviting this lovely panel, I would like to begin with Ovartaci. So Ovartaci occupies a very particular position in the exhibition. The life and work of Ovartaci was deeply entangled with long-term institutionalism. And then for this reason, it felt important to also give space to the institution that today holds responsibility for Ovartaci's legacy. So I'm therefore very grateful and will ask Nicolina from the Ovartaci Museum to say a few words about Ovartaci's work and the museum.
Thank you. And a huge thank you to Bergen Kunsthalle, Silja and Karsten, for welcoming the staff of Museum Ovartaci. We are very grateful for the great collaboration with you guys, and yeah, we really appreciate the exhibition. It turned out great. So I'm Nicoline, and I'm here with my colleague from Museum Ovartaci. So we traveled from Aarhus in Denmark. So Lise is sitting here, and she is our head of collection. So today I will tell you a bit about the museum and the artworks of Ovartaci, which you can also see a sample of here. We have contributed with 8 works, so mostly paintings, but also a handful of sculptures. And they are based in the first room when you go to the right, when you enter. So we're located in Aarhus, so we really hope you guys will come by if you're ever in Denmark. But we focus on art and the history of psychiatry, and we focus mainly on our artist Ovartaci. So he is shown here, and he was born in 1894 in the outer skirts of Aarhus. And he was really interested in other cultures, so in 1925 he traveled to Argentina, and he was planning on settling down, but 4 years later he returned, and he was in a really poor mental state, and he was behaving bizarrely, and he was really ill. So he was threatening his family, and he was then hospitalized in a mental asylum in Aarhus. And just a minute.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh yeah. What I wanted to tell you was that during this hospitalization, he created countless of artworks. And the way he used art was a form of gaining agency. So he would create the art, and he would, of course, use it as a therapeutic method. But also he would sort of use all scrap materials, because being in this asylum, he would not really have the usual access to artist materials. So he would use whatever scrap materials he could find. And then he created these dreamlike, mostly yellow and blue artworks and sculptures also. So he would, when he eventually gained access to a bike, he would just ride around town and sell these artworks, but he would also give artworks away as gifts. So he would thereby create his own gift economy with his art. So the art made survival possible for him, but also he gained a sort of agency with his art. So yeah, art historically we would call his art existential art, but also art, so outsider art. So he was never formally trained, but we are still recognizing it as art. His works depict his imagined past lives. So as I said before, he was really into other cultures and mythologies. So he really believed in reincarnation, which is really special and odd for that time in Denmark. So he tells the stories of how he was reincarnated as a bird living in China, and also as a human posing as a tiger and then eventually becoming a tiger. So the motives in his paintings are often, we see a slim figure here, so it's a feline-looking female character, often with these slim silhouettes and very elongated legs and arms, and all of which is also present in the other works in the exhibitions. And then he also made these small sculptures called the smoking phantoms, which essentially look like these very long women sculptures. And he believed that it would be more beneficial if you smoked through these sculptures. So he had all of these sort of beliefs that he would make up. Just a minute. Where was I? I want to make sure I tell you all of the stories. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so what you will also see when you experience his works is that his works are often centered around women. And he believed that the woman was sort of a spiritual creature with access to a higher level of consciousness. So he would always play with these female characters. And a big part of his works is also making papier-mâché dolls that he would ride around with his bike, and probably also to have them keep him company. But a big part of his story is also how he played with his identity and the transformations of his own identity. So he lived as a woman for multiple years, but towards the end of his life, he detransitioned, and he died in 1985. But today we really feel a growing interest in his works, so his works are definitely more relevant than ever. And feel free to ask us any questions if you have, and if you ever go to Denmark, please let us know. Yeah, we would be happy to see you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really nice. And so now we also continue with some short introductions or reflections from this beautiful panel that we have here. And then I will try to be like the slide DJ. So I will now start with giving the word to you, Cecilia Fiona. And then you have to just also help me to guide through the slides and tell me when to, how to fast I should move forward. Yeah,
I will try to guide you. Yeah. Yes, so I'm Cecilia Fiona. And just to start from scratch, I'm based in Copenhagen in Denmark. And I work with painting, sculpture, costumes, and performances. And I think you can say that it somehow starts with the paintings, and then the paintings grow out into the costumes and into the sculptures and into the performances, and then loop back again into the paintings. So all these different mediums, they become one interlinked ecosystem in a way. But in this show here at Bergen Kunsthal, I'm showing my costumes and a series of sculptures. And as mentioned before, there will also be a performance the 14th of March.
Yes.
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 Yeah, and maybe you can move on a bit. Yeah. Yes. So maybe one more actually. Yeah. It's fine. So so the sculptures I'm showing in this exhibition, they are all part of a series called Harvested, Gathered, Carried: The Life of Souls, and they have been created between 23 and 25. And if you have a closer look at the works downstairs, you can maybe see how the materials change in the sculptures, because I changed materials through the years when I was making these sculptures. But most of them are made with paper fibers, paper clay, paper pulp, recycled paper fibers, and then glazed with resin from trees. And then they have different skeletons. Some of them have, found metal structures and branches and wood, and also shells and many organic natural materials. And also they share, or they have in common, that they all have movable parts, small beings, small creatures, small souls living on each of them. And so during the performance, which is called Infinite Pollination, all these beings will be transferred around by the performers, because all these small beings, they all have a melody, they all have their own sound, and so through the movement of the performers, a music score will emerge. I kind of see each of the sculpture as a body on its own, but also as a small world, a small cosmos in a way, inhabited by beings, just like, our bodies are also inhabited by a lot of beings and microscopic creatures. And through the movement of the performers, these different worlds and these different bodies are all linked together and connected and weaved together. And maybe if you go to the costumes, if you can find one. Yeah, that's fine. So this is not the sculptures, the costumes downstairs, but some older costumes. Yeah, that's maybe more accurate. So the three costumes downstairs, they are part of a series called What a Joy to Live Above and Below All at Once. And I kind of see them as a kind of cosmic pollinators, like bees, insect pollinators that are weaving the world together and creating life by connecting, plants and connecting worlds, connecting bodies. But I also, while creating these costumes, I also read a lot about the Nordic mythology about the Norns sitting by the big tree of life, Yggdrasil, and weaving every human's faith. And somehow, in my head, there's definitely a connection between the Norns weaving faiths and then the bees and pollinators weaving also, in a way, our faith. Yes, and I don't know how much more time I have, but I guess just as a final thing to say. I guess overall in my practice, and maybe you have also kind of figured it out by now, but it's always like this, that there's never just, a thing is never just one thing. It's always, a body is also a world, or a flower is also a sun, so it's all connected and it's all part of a bigger system, a bigger cosmos. So that's what I'm always exploring in my works, this connection between the micro and the macro cosmoses and the relations. Yeah, I guess.
Amazing.
That's it for now. Sorry.
I have some questions, but I will also spare them for a little bit later, so then we can sort of tie it all together a bit when we've seen also how you guys are connected somehow. So you talked about, obviously, just to summarize this, also what I see now, to make a nice bridge to Mira, collaboration and landscapes and a voice that is operated and shared and distributed as a process, but not owned by a single subject. And that's, I thought, is a nice bridge to you, Mira, somehow. And I thought, because you have 2 works, just to summarize briefly. So there's 2 works in the exhibition. So it's one work which is just with you, and then it's one collaborative work with Nour. So I thought I would ask you to maybe start. Let me go here. So maybe we could
start with
the
Red Solaris.
About this.
Yes,
okay.
Of course. So my name is Mira. I'm a filmmaker, visual artist, and researcher. I'm from Lebanon, and I'm based in Oslo. So briefly, it's actually in terms of a timeline, Red Solaris 1. Maybe we can try it in terms of in order.
Let me skip. I'll be a good DJ. There we are.
Yes. So this is Dreams of a Wandering Octopus. It was made in 2021, and it has another piece with it. It's 2 complementary installations. Pardon. One is Impressions from the Underground and Dreams of a Wandering Octopus. So it started. It's basically a time where I was researching a lot the links between the political and the botany, the botanical world. It started in 2019. There was a massive uprising in Lebanon for the first time since I would say the end of the war. For a second, I'm part of the post-war generation, the civil war, and we were offered, or we thought we could rethink how we can live together in a society, in a political system that would be thought from bottom up. And of course, it was short-lived. But in the meantime, I was spending a lot of time in the mountains, in Mount Lebanon, where there is these gigantic trees, creatures, which we also find on the flag, which is the cedar trees, which are, from biblical time, apparently. And I spent a lot of time with the forest guards, and they were telling me very interesting things. That, for instance, some trees are 1,000-year-old, other one was 3,000 years old, and then he was saying to me that only the trees that grow up together in the same forest can live that long. The ones that are outside of these, groups can only live 500 years. And so I started more and more researching about that. How is that possible? And of course, reading radical biology, but also reading all different types of books around that, and thinking about how can we politically organize in order to create, a different type of structures in society and politically as well. So I started filming there, and this is how it's the beginning of the research. And slowly, the disenchantment of the revolution went, and then it was more about thinking about a longer spectrum of time. We're in a forest that is 1,000 years old with a completely different timeline. And so I tried through this installation to look at something that is beyond the lifetime of a human. What is it to be able to see over a long period of time like this, and how these little political events could be just interconnected in the longer span of things, but also yeah, so that was part of it. And so as you will see in it, it's 3 people that are lost in this forest, and at some point there's also the trees that talk about different how they organize together. So that was one part. At the same time, recording the trees was, what's outside of the forest, but the forest is also underground. So I used the 35 millimeter print and put them under these different locations. And over time, you would see that it was like a photography of the underground. So you see the different mycelium that imprinted is part of bacteria that are now dried and on it. So it was, and depending on where I put the film, I had completely different. This is one particular. This is another location. So the soil, the composition created. And you're talking about microcosm, and I mean, when I first saw that, I thought of these clouds that you see in the space, and how similar the structures were. So that's for this first part. So my research continued. I was living in Amsterdam, and which is a big colonial empire, used to be. I had access to a library called the Artist Library, where I was reading more and more about and seeing the first drawings of the early explorers that went, and discovered the world, supposedly, saw plants, renamed them, and the even act of naming plants, renaming them. So Linnaeus, the Swedish scientist, comes in play here. And then, and just next to this library was this beautiful botanical garden, which I spent a lot of time in. And slowly, I started thinking about the systemic violence, actually, that made these beautiful structures exist all over Europe. As I was looking more and more, I mean, at the beginning, it was these ships that were sent with these noblemen and scientists, and they went in, and all they talked about was about finding specimens of plants and trees and bringing back to the king of the glory of the empire. And slowly, it was about acquisitioning this land, and then, taking these lands and then bringing slaves in order to increase the output of these plants and spices. And so suddenly, it was also most like looking at a diamond, and then suddenly you look at it from another perspective, and looking at colonialism through the plants, through the whole botanical, realm. And so I started thinking of something. I mean, as you know, plant celluloid and cellulose, so film, analog film. And plants. There's something very similar, and even in the epistemology of these words. So I started thinking of a speculative fiction. All these plants that were together in the same space that would have never met, if not for this event, right? Of the colonial exploration, and putting together over time, they would have developed a particular sensitivity. And something is happening right now in all different botanical gardens across Europe and in the Arab world, because they also explored and conquered. And these plants are suddenly shifting. Maybe we can put red solaris. They're suddenly shifting like wavelengths, like radio wavelengths, to red colors. And scientists are wondering what is happening, and it's happening over a timeline. But yet and this is static now, but in the film it pulsates, it goes back to normal and then red, back to normal and red. And over time, they start also hearing like something like fragments of languages that they can't understand. So I'm also treating the plants here as sound archives through their travels from the lands of origin, boats, and to these botanical gardens. They would have stored in the water of the cells sounds, languages, Quechua, Indonesian, which I also happen to speak. So for the Dutch at least, the Dutch roads. So and slowly these languages are like sweating out of these plants, and everything, their communication is getting louder and louder and turning red in these beautiful glass houses. So that is the premise of Red Solaris. We're not no human measuring tool can measure what is happening yet. They are foretelling about an apocalypse that is about to come. but that we are not yet able to measure. So yeah, it's giving back also agency to these plants that were uprooted, so that gave me a lot to think of through plants, actually, about these, historical, violent histories that we've inherited, that we're part of, that I am part of, as Lebanese with French background. Anyway, so that was
amazing.
And Nour Ouayda. So I didn't talk about the technique. The red is also it's filmed on Super 8, but then the red happens because I introduce light while I hand process the film at a moment critical where it can swap the colors. So it's also photosynthesis, light, it's all these different things that were thought in together. And Nour and I are part of a collective, the Camellia Committee, with Karin Doumet. We're the three of us, from Lebanon. And she was also working with plants, with gardens. So around 2020, I started in 2021. A few years later, I invited her in the project, and together we made something that I would have never thought of, she would have never thought of. It just becomes this symbiosis of what collaborations do. So Nour says hi to everyone.
I think, just very briefly, when we first started to talk together, and then you sort of sent me this project description, because this is a completely brand new, premiered yesterday, so it's very, very new. And then you said, yes, we have this botanical science fiction. And I was like, a botanical science fiction? Thank you for introducing that term into my life. And then we also had a brief introduction with our team. And that, of course, the confusion is a bit with science fiction, and everyone but is this true? Do we tell people that this is going on for real, or do we keep it as a speculative thing? So that's you don't have to answer. I'm just sort of commenting further on it. Okay, then I think it's perfect timing to also. I'm just going to swap these gorgeous slides. So we can, okay, and then of course I urge you to sit down in this 3-channel installation immersed in these slides properly in the exhibition. Okay, there we go. Voila. And then I would like to give the word over to Robert Gabris. Which is the work that, for those of you in an exhibition, is the one you enter into in the black space when you first enter into the exhibition. There's also lots of sound and a poem that's important to the work. And so maybe I'll just give the word. I know you're good at talking about it.
So I named this work Asylum, a poem of unrest. And this title is already very striking me over years, and I'm thinking a lot about poems and how to translate political and post-colonial theory, which might sometimes sound very complicated, into understandable language. And I have a reason for that, because I differentiate between a knowledge and the academical knowledge and the episteme. Episteme of people, they are not involved and they are not included in our societies. They're often invisible. And so this is the post-colonial theory, which is not Eurocentric and it's not white, but it's coming from different places. So asylum is for me a very crucial place where I placed with my game these two insects talking to people, and the asylum oppose the institutional power and violence in our societies, and so knowledge and episteme, asylum and institution. And when we think who is placed in an asylum, these places are full of sickness and pain and violence. And the insects in my video are talking it is. I'm thinking if I should say speculative theory, but it is not, because for me nothing is speculative. Everything can be real in the second moment. So these insects are telling you a story about life before human came with the knives and colonized the nature. So as people were colonized in the history, they were colonized together with the nature and with the insects and with other human beings. And these human beings, the other beings which are not human, and these beings developed a strategy how to go along with the pain and build a strategy in order to survive, to modify, to form, and to build something new. We call it today imaginary spaces, or all these cool words you can hear and read from the theory. For me, it is not imaginary. For me, it is extremely real in the space I'm coming from, where often people have no voice. So just a short name-dropping, Iter Spivak, who wrote a thesis about subaltern and questioned if they can speak. And so often these people are voiceless, they cannot speak, but they use other ways of organizing themselves and being a part of and survive and live and becoming what they want to be. So these insects are telling you a story about and telling you about some few strategies how to build a space which is a collective space, and it's refusing the whole hyper individualistic way of being and being an artist and being and produce, and this production and this togetherness. It is a concept about collectivity, how these beings are always producing together. So I'm losing myself right now because there are so many points I want to make, and I will give you just one example. Before human came into this world, insects had the bones inside their bodies, and then they switched because as they were colonized, they thought to themselves, okay, we have to somehow build an armor around our bodies in order to survive this pain. So they built their bones on the outside the body. So this name is exoskeleton. So this is just one of many strategies how they modified. And this project is it's made of paper and drawing, because actually I draw and I use paper as the material of my work, and I speak basically. So the most important thing, and it is always my statement, that I don't speak to societies and I don't speak to people and to audiences. I speak to my own communities. It is very important for me to connect with them and make things understandable. So, and this is a very different kind of language, how to use a simple language and how to represent my community, because this is the last thing I want to say. It's very complicated to represent and to be a voice of a community and when the community is speechless and voiceless. What does it mean? It's a forced responsibility from the world to be representative of Roma community I come from. So this work it tries to catch that moment that I ignore what I represent for the others, but I try to be involved within my community. So this is also a collective work of many people, and I refuse to do these things alone, but more connect and build a new kind of spaces for us.
You're very good on time. You still have time, so
Yeah,
all good. And maybe I can ask you then, because what you're seeing in the exhibition, for those who've seen it, it's just a few elements of a larger body of work. So downstairs, just to describe it also, there's this video that you see on the wall when you enter. There's also the poem written by you on the wall. and then there's an animation.
Oh,
But
can
then,
you tell something
yeah,
about the
so maybe
animation,
that,
a few words?
and also there's a lot more actually. So maybe just nice to give a sense of like how big this project actually is, also in terms of, yeah.
Yeah. So I produced this work 2 years ago, and there are many costumes and drawings and paper you can wear on your body and build the exoskeleton. And then you see the animation of insects. It's also a paperwork, something like a puppet and animation. They move their body parts and organs, and they exchange the organs. So this is also a theory about other beings, how they share with each other spaces, but also their own bodies. And you put the organs out, you analyze them, you draw them, you observe them, and then you put the organs in, back to your body, but without a hierarchical order. So what does it mean to erase the knowledge that was given to us? So it's also a critical point of, okay, what does it mean to live in a queer body? So the queerness is always fluid and is able and has this ability to change and to modify and form. And yeah, so these insects are demonstrating, so the animation is demonstrating what the insects are talking about.
Exactly. And then there's also this sound. There's the reading of the poem, and then this insect animation makes these wonderful, noises that are a part of the room when you enter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is wonderful. Thank you, everyone. You're all good, so good on time. Perfect. I'm impressed. It's wonderful. So that means that we actually have exactly what we estimated to do, to open up a little bit for a conversation and for questions. And because we now had like a whole row of things, it also means you can ask each other questions, just so that's part of it. And I'm not sure I had one question for Cecilia Fiona, but maybe and also more, but I think I'd save someone, because I do want to make sure I have time for questions for you, between you, but also the audience, and then we can do a whole thing. So I'm just wondering if there's, and my colleague Vilja will go around with a mic. You don't have to use it, but it's nicer and easier for everyone to hear if you're okay and comfortable using a mic. If you have a question, raise your hand, and then Vilja will come and find you with the mic. So I'm just wondering if you have any comments or just thoughts, or it doesn't have to be a question. It can also just be something you observed. All welcome, and don't be scared. So just wanted to
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Martin. I work here at Bergen Kunsthall as a mediator, and I had a little question for Robert. I was struck by, in the video of the two costumed insects, there's a moment where they play together with like strings, and it reminded me of like I don't know. I think many countries have the same sort of children's game where you play with strings between two fingers. Is there
Yes.
Is that kind of the point, or can you talk a little bit about the string game?
Yeah. Yes, this is actually a memory of my childhood. So where we played with the strings and built a butterfly and all other kinds of beautiful things. I don't even remember. I don't even know how we call it. But the interesting thing, or the important thing for me, was to make a statement about an unrest. What does it mean to... so we often have now the privilege to rest. So we cause unrest, and so with this creative work and the constant braiding of the rope, you come into a moment where you develop new ideas because you are constantly working. This was more important for me to build this productive work within a collective. Because I'm not alone here, and speaking about the I, and I also write in the poem, the I is no more available. It should be us. So we are building this beautiful compositions together. You are not able to do it by yourself. You can, but it's boring and it's very lonely. So this work also refused the concept of loneliness, because it's problematic. Because if you tell me you are lonely, then I say I don't care. Then go and build your own collective, you know. There is so much work we should do. So this is a metaphor. So I'm talking metaphorically about braiding and what?
Collective.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Hello, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. It was just a perfect moment to catch up on that comment you made now, Robert, and ask about maybe also, Celia, if you could explain a little bit more about time in the Niels Klim novel, because there is something there also that connects with the living trees and the pace in these societies, and how Niels Klim is not slow enough. Maybe you can explain this a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a mic. Yeah. So actually, it's nice because my question was actually to all of us, or you also, actually about time, duration, and tempo, and waiting, and repetition, and rituals, and that I also see. And I think Kjersti's question, just to sort of put that in, is that, you know, this first illustration you saw of the tree stem, like, you know, they have like the arms and then the body and then the head and then a bit of the feet stick out. But of course, like, they walk really slow. They don't have knees. Or that's how I, you know, so it's so you kind of like, that's how I picture them. Like, you have to walk really slow because of these like tree wooden bodies. And so there's a lot of these different societies, but one, there's a few common things, right? They're all trees, that's common. They all have actually a common language. So even though it's Niels Klim travels to 27 different societies with rules, or there's these things that are common. And one of the part of the story to explain it is that all of these trees in the societies, they think slowness it's smart, it's clever, it's what they look upon as a very good thing. And then Niels Klim's arrived with his body and his legs, and he just runs through 27 places in like, he's around the planet like that. And he tries to get a job, he tries to get a place in the society, but he gets sort of if there's a hierarchy, he gets like a postbud, that was not English, male, because he's so fast. So he gets to sort of he thinks he's a student, he's been to Copenhagen, he studies, he has his diploma, he thinks he's very clever and smart, and that he should have a high position. And then he comes to this, and then everyone is just like, well, efficiency and fastness is just a sign of like stupidity, and that's just sort of the opposite. So in this whole planet, everything goes slow. Speaking slow, thinking slow, and working slow is a sign of being wise, and that's kind of one of the arching rules in in it. And of course now today it's also with like degrowth and our society, but it's kind of connected. Of course, we have to think that this is written in a time where everything also started to become really like the past was going faster, and that's sort of how I also read like, oh, it really resonates with time now. I know it was 1741, but we are still struggling about time and pace and all of this. So that's kind of like, but you all also, so that was kind of what was my connection with time. But then also I feel you also have an aspect of time in all of your works in different ways. Photography is time in a way.
Film, yeah.
And it's and all the rituals and all of these aspects. So I think it's that was also actually a overall question that I see in your So I don't know if you have any comments or questions. It goes to all of you. No. Hard to answer.
Well, I think I don't know. No, but I think it is a question that I was definitely thinking of, the human scale of our, like the span of our lives, and compared to to even plants that are not like cedars, which outlive civilizations. The DNA is sort of passed on almost intact, right? Because it's through mitosis. So it's like the same plant becomes two, and then but it's the same plant basically. So it's just this like continuity of time that I thought was something I was thinking of a lot. Whereas in our understanding of our lives, it's like there's a beginning and there's an end. And I don't know. I'm just thinking about this also because of the world in which we live in. There's a very famous quote by Louis XIV in France, who said, "Après moi le déluge," after me the drought. And this idea that everything ends with our lives, but I guess as the consequences of those decisions, political, ecological, go beyond our lifetime. And so I just thought that this discrepancy between our understanding of time, which ends with our lives, and how the ecosystem or the plants, the trees, it's like almost an infinite time. And I was always thinking that if it was possible there's a science called biomimicry. So if it was possible for us to also adjust our paradigm of time through how plants perceive and live time, then we could, I don't know, maybe think things differently, take different political decisions, So I don't know, that was my reflection on time with this work, at least. Your turn.
Yeah, I like that you say infinite time, because I think that's also something that has been on my mind in the work that I'm doing more general, but also in the work in these spaces. And also the performance is called Infinite Pollination.
Yeah.
So, there's clearly a connection there. And the sculptures are placed in a circle. And to me, it's kind of like a life circle, actually, where you walk around the circle of sculptures, and then you see the transformation when you walk around, and different stages of life. And the good thing about a circle is that you can just keep going around and around and around. But I didn't know that thing about Klim and the knees and how he became a mailman because of he was so fast. So fast.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm looking around.
Hello. I have a question to Mira about the 35mm film.
Yeah.
Did you use it as moving images or as a photo?
Photo, 35mm. So I did a few tests about it, and the best way it turned out was to actually, with my camera, still take photos, but with the cap on, so it's dark. And this is the only way you can get all the emulsions that intact and present. So then it's like black is like all the emulsions on top of each other, and it's black. And then through this, have the different compositions of the soil, the acidity, the fungus, the bacteria, carve, within these 3 layers of emulsion, and create. It is a sculpture, actually, if you think about it, made by the soil, fauna and flora also.
Collaboration.
Yes, a collaboration, exactly. So that's how it. And I then after that you dry, you stabilize, and then I use them as on a slide projector. So then you get to see this. These are photo scans, but what you see downstairs are projections through the slide projector. Yeah.
Yeah, and aren't you like curious to make it run on a?
Actually, I did, and it's a very good question because as we're speaking right now, there are some roles in the forest in Lebanon of Super 8 that are because it takes longer, because it's 15 meter. The roll, whereas these ones, it's like 35, so it's I don't know how long, but so it takes longer to get in and to activate. If you keep it too long, it becomes completely white because everything is eaten out. Yeah. So you just get the celluloid left. So I'm going back to Lebanon in 2 weeks, and I'm going to go dig in the forest and see what happened because
Yeah, you're bringing a bit the spirit of Stan Brakhage. Under the earth.
He's a big inspiration, and so yes, I would hope so. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing together. I wanted to ask something that's kind of low-hanging fruit based on observation, but a way for all of you to respond. And I observe across quite a number of the works a sense of multiplicity as a tool within your choices of materials or units of assemblage in garments. And I wondered if each of you could talk how that is perhaps taking us to this more than human in a different time space.
I didn't understand the question.
Okay, try it, yeah.
Okay. So, for example, in your work, we see these insects are constructed of multiple units. There's not one thing, there's this kind of patching together. There's also a symmetry that you employ, which we see in insect bodies and also in your costumes. And I personally observe a multiplicity in many of the works. It feels like a common aspect in creating this more than human sensation. And I'm sorry, it doesn't sound like a question anymore. But
this is what I was thinking now. Like,
it was a question.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, this is what it is. Yeah. It's not interesting at all. I mean, it's just a praxis, It's like you take a sheet of paper and you draw something. I mean, it's not really... I don't consider this as a concept I have to follow. You have your own praxis. You repeat things in your life. You repeat things in arts. And I don't even know how similar we are or if this is really like multiplication or repetition and repetition in the performance. So there are many discourses and many theories you can read about. In my opinion, I don't know. It's just, it becomes this. Yes.
In my case, I'm going to talk through Dreams of a Wandering Octopus. It is 3 screens, so there is already this... for me, it was the first time I worked with many screens. I come from cinema, so 1 screen. It was also... And there's 3 people speaking. There is the perspective of this man who is lost, who says, I'm lost in a forest, which I don't know the language. This woman that... who is the one who also, he loses, and then there's perspective of the tree. And in a sense, I think that the idea of anthropomorphizing and seeing the world from the perspective of the human is a very central, the man in the center of the world, and perhaps in a way to create a different form of epistemology, of knowledge gathering, was also to demultiply, to look at through different, to break that unity. I mean, that's at least how, it was a very important question. And even in my collective, when we describe, for instance, this work that was produced by it, we call it, comment on appelle, une polyphonie. A polyphony, many voices that are trying to attempt to describe, to talk to. So I think, yes, the many is definitely something that I work with, that I think along as well. For sure.
Yeah, and I think also, as I mentioned in the beginning, in my practice, all these different disciplines, painting, sculpture, costumes, performance, I think for me it's a way to look at the same theme in different perspectives, and I guess you said something about it being a way to be less human-centered, right? Yeah. And I think you're right about that, because I think when you get more perspectives and you look at things in different ways, then you have more perspective than just maybe the human perspective. So I guess in that sense I see your point. Yeah.
Okay. We're reaching our time. If there's anyone burning with a question, we can have one more. If not, we're sort of use the time that we have. Okay, then I just want to say thank you so much to Ovartaci over here, and then all of you for introducing us to all your practices, and thank you to all of you. And then I just hope that this journey underground and the exhibition is a place you spend some time and come back for events. And the bookshop, I can tell by, if you go down there, you also see sort of as a million books there that are a source of inspiration that is connected to the exhibition as curated also. So I would recommend that too. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.